What's up, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Chris Welsh, and welcome into running back ranks for Week 1. Pat Fitzmaurice, Andrew Erickson, both in the house. These two gentlemen ranked pretty dang high in RBs last year. Fitzy, you were number 8. We talked about your overall in season was 20 last season. Top 10, top 8 for RB ranks. Erickson, you were in the 30s, which is still pretty respectable. Remember, there's like 200 plus people that are doing this. I was in the 50s. That's okay. I had my best rank year last year, and that was simply because I was sitting next to the guru, Pat Fitzmaurice, and all those smart minds. But now I got two big brains next to me every single week, so I got to keep going up. So we got a lot of good juice on the running back ranks in this house from last season. And by the way, shout out to Derek Brown, who I believe also was like number 10 in there. So RB house is ready. Erickson, are you ready to even tackle RBs for this week? Do you think RBs or wide receivers, which one is more messy for Week 1?
I still think the receivers are a little bit more messy, just because a lot with the running backs, especially some of the top guys, I think that we feel pretty confident about projected workloads. That's why running backs were so popular going in round 1, round 2. Why we were advocating that as a strong draft strategy was, hey, try to at least get one running back in the top 2 rounds, unless you can hit on 2 of your favorite receivers, just because a lot of these guys are teed up in a really good way and some good matchups for Week 1. So it's a matter of when we get to those messy backfields where we're going to have conversations about the rankings very in depth. But for the top guys, I think you're feeling pretty good.
Fitzy, what's your comfort level on the RBs? I do feel like it is a little bit more land miney. It's a little bit more explosive. There's these like dual RB situations that we're all just kind of holding our breath on. There's also, everyone's joking about that we're going to wake up Sunday to the tweet that's going to be like, Bill Krosky's inactive. It's going to just be some nonsense that's going to be out there and blow it all up. But what is your confidence level, wide receivers versus running backs, as far as ranks for this week?
Yeah, first of all, Welsh, thank you for the big brain compliment. I don't know that my wife would agree with that assessment, but I appreciate it anyway. Yeah, I just think running back gets really murky outside the top 25. You're pretty comfortable with everyone inside the top 25. Beyond that, who knows? It's kind of ugly. So wide receiver maybe goes a little deeper with the trust level, but, I have a lot of trust in that top 25. After that, look out below.
And that also, what I'm leading into by doing that is this might be a week, especially Week 1, that flex should be way more wide receiver heavy than RB. Not to say that, because we're going to be going deeper here. The structure of this show is going to be looking at the big boards of the top 36 on Fantasy Pros ECR. So it's not to be dismissive of some of those names, but if you're looking at like chalk versus kind of the chaos, that you might be a little bit safer in your flexes this week at wide receiver. But we'll have that discussion and we'll see if that is necessarily the case. So we are going to be going through those top 12 and then, boom, 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 wide receiver or running back 2s and 3s. If you guys want to follow along, fantasypros.com/rankings. You can see the expert consensus rankings where all the experts are. They're continuously putting in their Week 1 ranks. So it's going to kind of ebb and flow as far as what it looks like. But you can follow along all the way up until kickoff for whether it's the Thursday, Friday, or especially the Sunday games. And you can check out where everybody has got them ranked. Let's go see where we've got these ranks, gentlemen. Starting with our big board of RB1s. Saquon Barkley leads the way. Christian McCaffrey comes in at number 2. Bijan Robinson at 3. Jahmyr Gibbs, and then Derrick Henry, pretty standard there for top 5. Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, Ashton Jeanty, Devon Achane, Josh Jacobs, and James Conner. So we're definitely going to talk about Conner here in a second. I was about to say, through the first 11, we're like, yep, all the names you pretty much expect. Nothing too crazy going into Week 1. And then James Conner comes in, which we'll talk about. But you guys have got a discrepancy difference here. I love it. There's a high and a low. And the ECR for Ashton Jeanty only represents the average between you two. Fitzy, let's start with you. You're a high guy on Ashton Jeanty. You've got him at RB6 this week. That is where Jonathan Taylor is on that list. So you are all in. None of these guys are probably sits or anything like that when we talk about RB1s. But just for fun conversation on all of these, you really seem to be into Jeanty going off in Week 1.
Yeah, well, the 4 best running back prospects we have seen come into the NFL in the last 10 years. Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Ezekiel Elliott, Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty makes it onto the Mount Rushmore for RB prospects of the last decade. Do we really think the Raiders aren't going to give ample touches to the guy they just drafted 6th overall. Raiders offensive coordinator Chip Kelly likes to play at a fast pace, which should be good for Jeanty's touch volume. And the Patriots gave up the 3rd most rushing yards to running backs last year.
Erickson, you are not as enthused about Ashton Jeanty. You don't hate him. You roll your eyes because you thought I was going to be like, you hate him. You just don't like him as an RB1. You've got him at RB13, so you're right outside that list. But you don't have him as a top 10. You don't have him as an RB1. You are officially listing him as an RB2.
Hater.
So why do you hate him? Yeah, why do you hate him?
Yep, I hate Ashton Jeanty, even though he was my RB3 in redraft season. So clearly I hate him, and I'm going to be finding ways to put him on my bench in all my leagues that I have him in.
Clearly.
Kidding, of course. So for me, I do think the Patriots defense, specifically their run defense, is vastly superior than it was last year. I think they were missing a lot of guys last season. They obviously brought in Milton Williams, signing him from the Philadelphia Eagles, bringing in Mike Vrabel. So I don't think that their run defense is going to be nearly as much of a pushover as it was last season. And again, to the point, Ashton Jeanty is still a rookie, and I still want to see what his role is. I want to see how Chip Kelly is using him. Or another running back that's playing on 3rd downs, where these other running backs that I ranked ahead of him, I have no concerns about what their roles are. I feel really confident about what each guy is doing in their respective offenses and how much of a workload they are going to see. So that's the only reason why I have him down to 13, and I will be the first one to move him up in week 2 if I get confirmation of everything that I was hoping for with Ashton Jeanty, if it all comes to fruition in week 1. So I'm willing to be wrong in week 1 just to be a little bit more safe when it comes to his ranking.
So Erickson is expecting a platoon with Zamir White and Ashton Jeanty. Got it. Noted.
Got it. You don't like him. So sit will be the big answer from Erickson this week on Ashton Jeanty. Where did James Conner come from? James Conner comes in at 12 on this list. I mentioned this in the wide receiver episode, but we've got matchup ratings, a cool thing you can check out on the rankings page, where just straight up 5-star ratings between what their matchup looks like. And in the top 12 running backs, the highest rating any RB gets is a 4. So there's no 5s, and there are 6. And James Conner is one of those that gets a 4-star rating. So the rating, obviously, against New Orleans, I think some of it speaks for itself. But James Conner could have been maybe a little fringy for some people this week in smaller, like 10-team leagues. But the ranks are dictating like you were starting at all cost here at RB12. You guys, for the most part, agree. Fitzy, a little bit lower. But Erickson, you're even higher. So let's start with you. You've got James Conner. You love James. You like James Conner over Ashton Jeanty. That just clicked for me. You like James Conner a lot this week.
Yeah, because I know that with the fact that James Conner is the bell cow when he's healthy, and he's one of these other players that the reason he was ranked in the mid RB2 range through redraft is, well, we know it's not going to last with James Conner. He's going to get banged up at some point, but he's not banged up for week 1. He is ready to go. So he's going to be a top 12 running back against the Saints. The Saints, per PFF, 32nd ranked defensive line entering this year. Their defensive line was bad last year, and unlike the Patriots, they didn't actually change it in the offseason. Like, they didn't do anything significant to make their defensive line better against the run. So I think James Conner, he is their war daddy, he is their workhorse, and he is going to eat in this matchup. And you need to start him because you're only going to get so many James Conner weeks.
Hashtag war daddy. Fitz is our war daddy here. 14, RB 14. So you're just a tiny bit lower, but that's probably still like a little bit higher, I think, than people like perceptually would have thought. What's your feeling on Conner versus the Saints defense?
Yeah, sometimes I get onto the show and I look at my rankings and I just realize I'm probably wrong with one of them, and I should probably get with the program here and move up Conner a couple of spots to get in line with ECR at least. He's the clear number 1 at running back for the Cardinals. Touch volume shouldn't be an issue in a game where the Cardinals are favored by almost a touchdown, and the Saints were really bad against the run last year. It's hard to imagine they've fixed all those problems.
All right, well, James Conner, suit him up.
Shout out to Sonos for supporting today's show, whether it's a Monday night where I'm sitting home watching the football games, or I'm flipping back and forth between all the games on Sunday, or even college football on Saturdays. If I want to feel like I'm in the game, there's only one way to do it, and that's the sound of Sonos. Whether it is on the go with the headphones or the home theater experience, nothing takes you into the event live, feeling like you're in the stadium like Sonos. And I'm telling you right now, if you care about sound, you care about the experience of your sports, of your movies, Sonos is for you. It delivers incredible studio quality, and it makes it easy to really enjoy and enhance all of your entertainment levels. Take them to the next level. The home theater system I've got in my house, let me tell you something. It is next level. It's easy to set up. Sometimes those things are complicated. Sonos is not. They make it easy to up your experience level. And I'm telling you right now, the Sonos soundbar, way better than the old one I used to have. So much better. The Ace headphones too. You want to talk about quality. You want to talk about battery life. Up to 30 hours of battery. You get 3 hours of playback with a 3-minute charge. That's incredible. So right now, I want you to visit Sonos.com to learn more and explore the full Sonos lineup. Because if you're serious about great sound for football, for podcasts, for music, whatever it might be, you've got to check out Sonos. Again, visit Sonos.com to learn more and explore the full lineup: headphones, sound bars, home theater systems. Sonos has you covered. And now, back to the action.
RBs 13 through 24. Let's go take a look at this next list and the big board. Kyron Williams jumps in at number 13 for your RB2. Alvin Kamara at 14. Ken Walker, Chubba Hubbard, James Cook, Omarion Hampton at 18. We got Tony Pollard, Breece Hall at 20. TreVeyon Henderson at 21. Pacheco, Aaron Jones, and DeAndre Swift. Boy, there are lots of conversations we could have. We can only have so many, though. But let's start with one of the rookies, and let's make it TreVeyon Henderson here. ECR 21. Fitz, you've got him at 20. Erickson, you've got him at 23. You guys are pretty close, but there definitely is kind of the split that's staring at us. And what is the usage? I think the same thing kind of applies for Hampton as well. I don't think we should be necessarily dismissive of it. But Fitz, why don't we start with you on expectations for TreVeyon this week? And you having him at 20 definitely is going to put him as a starter, but is there any hesitation at all on like what week one might look like as far as the workload goes?
Yeah, role could be hard to pin down right away, but we know that TreVeyon Henderson is the kind of guy who doesn't need a lot of touches to go over because of the big play potential. And home opener against the Raiders, do we really think Trey Henderson isn't going to break off at least one big play? And Erickson, aren't you supposed to be the Patriots fan here? Like, how unpatriotic of you to have TreVeyon Henderson ranked below ECR?
What happened? What happened, Erickson?
Clearly, my rankings didn't update because I did update it so that he was a little bit closer to the ECR. Actually, I did move him up to RB21. So I'm right in line with ECR. And to Fitz's point about the role that he's going to have, I don't think that we're ever going to see Henderson in this full-blown bell cow role just because of the way that he's built and the fact that when Ohio State put him in this massive volume role, he got injured and broke down. So I think there's either going to be Stevenson or Antonio Gibson. Somebody's going to be there just to make sure that Henderson doesn't break down. But I think weekly, he's going to see enough volume where more likely and more often than not, you're going to be happy that he was in your starting lineup because of the explosiveness. And the fact that when you look up and down the Patriots roster, I'm pretty sure he's just the best player on their offense besides Drake May. And Josh McDaniels is not a dummy. Like, he knows that he needs to get the ball to Henderson, especially in high value, high leverage situations in the red zone, out of the backfield, catching passes. And yeah, the Raiders defense up and down. Yeah, they got Max Crosby. Who else do they have? Like, not a lot of guys that you're really fearing. So McDaniels obviously knows a lot of these players too. Again, he used to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. So I think they'll have good intel. So I like the Patriots offense here. And yeah, Henderson is a strong RB2.
Let me just quick aside from what's on our show sheet. Let me do this game with you. You guys don't have to do crazy breakdowns on it. Yay or nay? Should Breece Hall be above TreVeyon Henderson, Erickson?
No, he should not.
Fitz?
I've got him one spot lower.
Okay. Yay or nay? Should Omarion Hampton clearly be a tier above TreVeyon Henderson? Fitz, yay or nay?
He is one tier above in my tiers article, which is forthcoming. That should be up Thursday morning at Fantasy
Tease, master tease. Love that. Erickson, is Omarion Hampton a tier above TreVeyon Henderson for week one?
I have him a spot ranked ahead of TreVeyon Henderson for week one, but not a tier per se, but one rank ahead.
Only other last one here, and this is just a point to draft season. I think TreVeyon Henderson pretty locked down was going ahead of Chubba Hubbard. But Chubba Hubbard is up here at 16. Pretty good matchup against Jacksonville. Do you think there is a big difference, Erickson, in Chubba versus TreVeyon Henderson in week one?
I think it just goes back to you feel more secure about what the projected workload will be like for Chubba Hubbard, right? We're hoping and expecting TreVeyon Henderson to rip off an explosive play. But in the 30 percentile outcome that he doesn't, well, then he's probably going to disappoint in your lineup. Whereas Hubbard he's pretty much going to be a lock for 15 points. Again, he's probably going to score a touchdown. He's going to be effective on the ground. They're facing the Jaguars, and they like to feature him in a game that Panthers and Jaguars, that could be a sneaky shootout. So you're excited about playing parts of that game, and Chubba Hubbard's a big part of the Panthers offense. So that's kind of, I think his projection is a little bit safer, a higher floor play.
See, it's interesting. I almost kind of think, I felt like the narrative started to turn that Chubba Hubbard wasn't safe and that Rico Dowdle was going to take away. Like I agree. I'm a Chubba Hubbard guy, but just hearing you say this out loud felt contrary to the draft equity of him.
I guess it like those things tend to play out like over the season. But in week
sure.
one that's kind of why I think week one you're feeling like, okay, it's going to be Hubbard. And it's like maybe Dowdle starts to like eat in a little bit more as the season progresses, or if like Hubbard struggles for some reason. But I could see a scenario really if the Panthers fall behind significantly and the Jaguars are up on them, and then Hubbard gets game scripted out because we know he doesn't have a receiving role. Like that's kind of the case of where he does fail in the situation where it's Henderson. Game script is kind of, he's independent of that because he's probably, actually the worst game script for Henderson is probably if the Patriots are winning or like blowing out the Raiders where they're not feeding him in the second half in between the tackles. So maybe some game script for both running backs. I think Hubbard just overall has the safer projection just based on 15 to 20 touches.
And then Fitzy, same thing. Chuba over TreVeyon
by 5 spots. And Erickson summed all this up really well. And I would just add about the Hubbard versus Rico Dowdle thing. Like, follow the money. Hubbard signed a massive contract extension in the offseason, and Dowdle signed a contract that was worth like a little more than the veterans minimum.
Yeah, full agreement here. For some reason, it was like Chuba and James Conner just became boring and not fun for anybody to draft at the end of drafts. And we're looking at Chuba as like almost a top 15 and James Conner's an RB1. So interesting. One more RB to talk about in this range. This is actually a guy that I wasn't super into in draft season. ECR 22. You guys are a little bit different. Fitzy, you're right on ECR. Erickson, you are a few spots higher. It's Isiah Pacheco. So Isiah Pacheco here. Fitzy, let's actually start with you on this one. You're just about at consensus. No worries of any of the split. I kind of threw it at you when we did some episodes that, I don't know, it just felt messy. Pacheco's like clearly the best back, but it seems like they want to run 3 out there. And it seems like those touches might be limited. Doesn't mean he can't thrive with those touches, but it just seemed like they might use Hunt in goal line stuff and they might use Brashard Smith in a passing game. Maybe that's just narrative that stupidly is taking people like me away from Pacheco. You've got him at ECR. So what's your take in week 1?
That's it, Welsh. You said it pretty well. Like, Pacheco looked good in the preseason. I think we want him to go back to being the clear lead back for the Chiefs. He wasn't the same last year when he got back from that broken leg after just 2.5 months. But it might be annoying. Maybe we're still going to see more of Kareem Hunt than we would like to see. And maybe D-Bro's guy, Brashard Smith, plays on passing downs. Like, there's still some usage questions with Pacheco. And this isn't a really easy matchup this week. Like, the Chargers gave up the 6th fewest fantasy points to running backs last season. And if last year's Eagles-Packers game in Brazil was any indication, the field in Sao Paulo might be coated with some sort of non-stick cooking spray because footing was terrible last year, and I'm a little worried about that.
Erickson, you're not as worried. Not that you're like crazy high. 18 for Pacheco. So you've got him a little bit higher here. You've got him higher than TreVeyon this week. So talk about what's got you pushing Pacheco up the ranks.
I just think that he's finally healthy now. And when Pacheco was healthy, he was more like a top 15 fantasy running back. If you just look at what he did at the start of 2023 up until his injury in 2024, 14.2 points per game in half PPR, that was good for mid-range RB2 fantasy production. I think that he's the clear-cut number 1 running back on the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to be a better offense in 2025. So it would not surprise me at all if we come back on this show in week 2 and say, oh, well, now Pacheco, he's a top 12 running back. Right? After what we saw, Kareem Hunt got totally dusted. Brashard Smith is a 7th rounder. Yes, we're excited about what he can do as a receiver, but the team trusts Pacheco. Again, Pacheco was also a 7th rounder, and it took him some time to get the trust of Patrick Mahomes. He's in a contract year, right? He's got to leave it all on the field, which is concerning sometimes with him because he runs into other defensive players really, really aggressively and gets banged up, which is always a concern. But if he's got that juice back, we may even see it on one or two first plays where it's like, oh man, like Pacheco is back. Like, that explosiveness was not there last year. But if it's back, I think we can be excited. I think that you may be looking at a supreme value have on your roster when you drafted him in like round 6 or 7.
I'm ready to eat crow. Like, if we come back and, he got 20 plus carries and those guys were off the field, it's like, yep, just made a mistake. I'm ready to do that in the next episode. And also a little Easter egg. See if you guys can find the Fantasy Pros Easter egg in that game as well. Maybe not the only thing we're talking about from that Chiefs game next week. Dominate your fantasy football league with Fantasy Pros Premium, now available free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first wager on one of our partner sportsbook. This is the easiest way to get full access to our fantasy tools all season long. Go to fantasypros.com/premium to get started today, my friends. Big board time. RBs 25 through 36, so call it RB3s or flex running backs. Dave Montgomery kicks us off here. That's pretty much where he was in draft season 2. He's just like 25, just 24, 25. That's where he lives. Tyrone Tracy, RJ Harvey down to 27 versus his draft stock. Travis Etienne, Jalen Warren, J.K. Dobbins, Austin Eckler's 31, Tank Bigsby, Javonte Williams, Jerome Ford, Nick Chubb, and Ramondre Stevenson. Interesting list here. Dave Montgomery, as I mentioned, 25, pretty much I felt like across draft boards. Fitzy, you've got him at 22, Erickson at 27. So you guys are a little bit split, but this is the difference between an RB2 and an RB3. Do you think, Fitz, that everyone was writing off David Montgomery a little too soon? He was a very unpopular draft pick, I felt like. Every time you got into a draft, no one ever wanted David Montgomery. Are we going to regret that? Maybe like the Pacheco stuff. Different situation, of course.
Yeah, maybe a bit. It depends. I mean, there are some headwinds here with Ben Johnson leaving, with center Frank Ragnow retiring, and maybe the coaches for the Lions adjust the dials a little bit and say, like, look, Jahmyr Gibbs is special. We have to give him more work. So for me this week, it's largely matchup based. Like, the Packers are going to have a fearsome pass rush with Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary. But the Packers, to get Micah Parsons, just traded away the best run stuffer on their defensive line, Kenny Clark. So running up the middle, like, I think you need to do that against the Packers. Like, the way to beat the Packers is not to let Jared Goff drop back 40 times and be subject to that pass rush. I think you have to balance the offense and run the ball. And Monty has had some success against the Packers. Since joining the Lions in 4 games against Green Bay, Montgomery has averaged 98 yards from scrimmage and has scored 5 touchdowns.
Erickson, you've got him at 27, so he's like a fringy-ish type of flex play for you. Not a ton of excitement, lower than ECR. What's your take on what his usage is going to look like? And coming back to what I said at the beginning of this episode, do you think Dave Montgomery is the proper representation of, like, if you've got a wideout versus him? Like, I'll throw you a deeper wideout we didn't even talk about in the wide receiver episodes. Like, would you rather a Dave Montgomery or throw out like a Jaden Higgins for your flex?
I would still roll with Dave Montgomery in
Okay.
that scenario. I think that Fitz makes up a good point where, trading away Kenny Clark. Yeah, they have some defensive tackle depth, but how established is that? And now are they scrambling now to kind of, now we have this massive hole on our defensive line. We got to fill it. And the Lions aren't stupid. Like, oh yeah, they just traded away their defensive tackle. Like, let's attack the middle. Who's our hammer? Hello, David Montgomery. So I think that, yeah, Montgomery could be solid this week. I think ultimately with Montgomery, it's always, does he score a touchdown? Right. Like, that kind of is how he pays off, especially in half PPR. So I think that he is a good flex play, especially if you drafted him. And he was falling in a lot of drafts too. So there were definitely opportunities where you could have scooped him up. Because I am worried about him season long and what it will be like in tougher matchups. And I do have some question marks about what the role is. What if he's out there and only plays like 30% of the snaps because Gibbs has just been fully unleashed, 70% snap guy? Maybe Montgomery, he scores 2 touchdowns, but the usage is bad. And we're talking about him on the trade show as, hey, Dave Montgomery, you got to sell high off the touchdowns.
Okay, I'm going to intertwine that wide receiver ranks episode real quick. Just taking a look. Here was 36 through 30. Travis Hunter, Deebo Samuel, Calvin Ridley, Chris Olave, Ricky Pearsall, Emeka Egbuka, George Pickens. Who is David Montgomery starting over from that list?
PPR or half?
Half.
I'd say most of those guys for me.
Okay, yeah, I kind of figured you, Fitz, because you've got him higher. So you're going to start him over. We're going to just say all, just for intensive purposes. Yeah. Erickson, what about you?
Can you read the list again? Or is it the...
It is 30. Yeah, it's our wide receiver ranks, 25 through 36, but it's 36 up to 30. Travis Hunter, Debo, Ridley, Olave, Pearsall, Emeka, and Pickens. Who does David Montgomery start over from that list?
Okay, so he's probably starting over Pickens, Pearsall, Olave, Ridley, Hunter, and probably mostly all of them except for Egbuka. That's probably
Okay,
that's the guy I'm the most bullish on of the receivers in that group. Again, it's like if a receiver doesn't have a very compelling reason for me to start them, then I'll just start Montgomery and hope he finds the end zone. Like, I think that's a solid strategy.
Fantastic answer, because I was trying to lay out, like, when we get to the RB3s, the flex plays, are they going to be able to beat out some wide receivers? And I think that shows some confidence that you both have, even though, Erickson, your rank is a little bit lower. That is showing some confidence in being able to start him over what I think is a pretty strong group of wide receivers there, maybe with some questions. And one of the weirder rank things, this kind of screams to me, we don't know what to do here, but 2 Jaguar running backs are in this range. And I would not have guessed at any point, or maybe I'll make a statement that there will be any single point where 2 running backs are going to finish inside the top 36. Travis Etienne is 28. Tank Bigsby is 32. Etienne is the piece of conversation because he's the top one, but feel free to intertwine Bigsby in this. Fitz, you've got him at 27. Erickson, you've got Etienne at 32. Let's start with the lower side of this with you, Erickson. What's your thoughts as he drops a little bit lower, and then intertwining Bigsby into this, your interest in starting these guys? It seems pretty volatile.
Yeah, I think that when we have these ambiguous situations, it's usually the matchup that will dictate, okay, even though we're not 100% sure what the role is going to be, the matchup says, okay, you should start these guys. And last year, that was the recipe for success. Start every single running back against the Carolina Panthers, and it ended up working out more often than not. Now, Carolina has done a lot this offseason to try to improve their defense, so it's probably not going to be as bad as it was last year, but let's let them show us that they've improved first. So I think that we can still attack this defense. I think what it comes down to Etienne versus Bigsby, it's kind of how this game script goes. If this is more of a shootout, which I kind of feel like it might be, I think you'll see more of Etienne because they're throwing the ball a little bit more, maybe not relying as much on the ground game, and that run defense maybe has improved for Carolina. Getting Derek Brown back in the middle of the defense matters significantly. Like, he's not a pushover at the defensive line position, so I think he matters a ton. But if the Jaguars get out to a massive lead, they are up 14-0, I think they would be happy to feed Bigsby in the second half, and then he also has touchdown equity. So I think it is kind of trying to project how you feel like the game flow is going to go. I think that both guys can be started as flex plays. I know I personally have more Etienne than Bigsby, so I am hoping that is a more back and forth shootout type of game because we know Etienne's going to have the pass catching role. So that's kind of how I see it.
Fitzy, what do you think? You've got him one spot higher than ECR for Etienne. What's your takeaway from these 2 guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's folly for us to try to figure out what the Etienne Bigsby split is going to look like in week 1. Not that we care about depth charts, but the Jaguars have listed Etienne and Bigsby as co-starters. Yeah. And I do think they're both going to play, but a half share of touches against this Panthers defense. And I do realize getting Derek Brown back, not our D-bro, by the way, the bigger one.
The king of bros?
That is gonna help, like, tighten up the Panthers run defense to some extent, but this defense needs a lot of tightening up. They give up a league worst 27.5 half-point PPR fantasy points per game to running backs last season. They give up 2,520 rushing yards to running backs, which was almost 500 yards more than the next worst run defense. So I do think it is reasonable to consider Etienne a high-end RB3 this week based on a projected half share of the workload here.
Another really interesting running back for you guys that you are higher than ECR on is J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins comes in at ECR RB30, but Erickson's dropping an RB2, and Fitch, you're just not too far off from it. So, Erickson, let's go to you since you're the higher one on it. You got J.K. Dobbins rocking at 22 this week. And I think I've seen conflicting reports. I saw Dobbins was at the top of the depth chart, whether you care or not. I saw one that had Harvey, but I don't think that was true. I think it's been all Dobbins here. So what's your take on the J.K. of Dobbins?
I just think that this is going to be a statement game for the Denver Broncos and that their run game is back. Last year, Sean Payton was desperately trying to establish the run with a bunch of running backs that couldn't get it done. And now he went out, got 2 running backs that he wanted on his roster. And I think they're going to tell everyone in the NFL that, yeah, we're going to be able to run the football on you, and we don't care who you are. The thing that with Denver last year that I could not forget entering this season, they had the number 1 margin of victory last season. So when they won games, they killed the teams that they beat. Usually it was because they were bad teams, but their average margin of victory last year was 19 points. So I'm in a situation where you have a Denver Broncos running back on your team, you're starting them in your lineup. Because I think Harvey and Dobbins are both going to eat in this matchup. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're both running wild at home in Denver's season opener against the Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward. I think it's just a really tough spot for Tennessee in week 1.
Who do you have higher, Harvey or Dobbins?
I have Dobbins 1 spot ahead, 22, but Harvey's right behind him at 23.
Okay. Fitzy, you've got him at 26. You're still higher than consensus. He's like right in that David Montgomery type of range. Do you think he's kind of close to a value of a David Montgomery, or a tier different?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think he's pretty close. I've got him just 1 spot below Montgomery, or is it? I'm sorry. No, I've got
you
him
have Montgomery at 25. No, you have
20,
you have
22 and 26 for Dobbins. So
pretty close.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just I think Dobbins is going to be more valuable than RJ Harvey at the onset of the season. And that's not the way I drafted it. I was drafting RJ Harvey over J.K. Dobbins, although I had both, pretty respectful rankings for both guys. I think Dobbins probably gets the goal line carries for the Broncos early on. I think Dobbins gets more touches than RJ Harvey this week because maybe the Broncos are a little more comfortable with Dobbins in pass protection than they are with Harvey. And the Broncos are favored by more than a touchdown at home against the Titans. It could be a really run-friendly game script. So I think it sets up pretty well for JK.
Forgive me if you said it. Do you have Dobbins ahead of Harvey?
This week, yes.
Okay. Yeah, just this week.
Yeah, and it's several spots, too. It's not a 1-spot difference like Erickson has.
Okay. The final thing here, plenty of running backs we talked about. There's some that we didn't see. So this is going to be an RB that did not make the top 36 that should be. You guys are doing a squad ride. So Fitz, we are going to start with you. I'm in complete agreement, and it's funny because this is the guy that made me want to make sure we were doing the oh, they didn't make it. Let's make sure we talk about it because I saw this. I will say this guy has moved up just a tiny bit in 12 hours, but this player was not inside the top 36 on Tuesday night. And who is that player, Fitz?
It's Jordan Mason. So he's now inside the top 36 in ECR.
He's now moved to 35, I believe,
35,
as we started the show.
Yeah, so right when we were figuring this out, he was outside the top.
But he didn't make the
36.
screen. He didn't make
Correct,
our big
correct.
board. So
yeah, and I've got him RB 33. Mason is going to split time with Aaron Jones, so he has a good chance to get double-digit carries. And I don't know. I think the Vikings can run the ball on the Bears behind their refurbished interior of the offensive line.
Erickson, well, what did you want to throw out there? How high should Jordan Mason be?
I think that Fitz described it perfectly. I don't really know if have much else to add. It's just I think that he also has more touchdown equity than Aaron Jones does in this lineup. So especially in half PPR. Look, Monday night, if you're going in, you're down by 10, 13 points. You got Jordan Mason, that RB2 slot. It's not over yet.
Not over. Well, especially in your betting market, too. And don't you have Jordan Mason to lead the league? Yeah.
75-1.
Oh, just little tiny odds you got there. Fantastic. All right, well, there you go. Those are the RB ranks for the week, top 36. You can check out more of the ranks over on fantasypros.com/rankings. You can go and look. Like I said, they update. I mean, frankly, I don't even know as the graphics are up there. There might be little adjustments here. The week 1 especially is one of the biggest movers and shakers as far as ranks go because people are transitioning from draft to weekly ranks here, but you can go and check it out and how it moves all the way up until kickoff on Sunday. But don't also forget that we've got some weekly start and sit live streams on our YouTube channel where you can come and ask specific questions. Maybe we brought up some questions or maybe we didn't answer something specific that was really hitting you. We'll be there every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So those listening on the podcast, go to youtube.com/fantasypros, subscribe, and click that bell so you're notified when we do hit those weekly live streams Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. For Andrew Erickson and Pat Fitzmaurice, I'm Chris Welsh. Thank you guys so much for hanging out for the RB ranks, and good luck this week. We'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros.